Hey, wellness crew, and welcome to my stream of consciousness. Obviously, during my streams of consciousness, there's a whole bunch of different things that I talk about. And one of the things that was on my mind recently is that there are so many people and clients that I've had this problem with is they do not feel comfortable in their own skin. And this is something that a lot of people need to work on. It's very difficult to sometimes have that confidence or to have that experience of being able to say, yes, I feel completely confident in my skin. I feel good about the way that I look. I feel good about the person that I am on the inside. And this is where a lot of inner work needs to take place in order for you to get to the place where you do feel confident, you do feel comfortable in your own skin. Being the kind of person that is shining from the inside out, right? That's the biggest thing. People can really tell when you're comfortable with your body language, with the way that you are speaking, with the way that you have your mannerisms, with the way if you're open or if you're closed. And a lot of people, when they're closed or when they're uncomfortable, they're going to kind of be sitting like this or be standing like this. Whereas when you have more open body language, that shows that you're more inviting, that you're more just open to things in general. And being confident with yourself and with your body is something that does take time if you're not there already. There are some people that are just naturally gifted that way, some people that have natural confidence. But with a lot of clients that I've worked with and with a lot of people in my personal life, it's something that they need to work on in order to attain. And that was definitely me. For a very long period of time, I was always so self-conscious about myself. I was so self-conscious about the way that people thought about me, the way that people, just had their experience of me. And I was always just totally dogging on myself, totally thinking, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not worth this. I'm not worth that. And so I wasn't open to a lot of opportunities that were available to me. And what I had to learn is that as I've gotten older and matured, is it's a lot easier sometimes in hindsight to see and understand your mistakes when it comes to being comfortable in your own skin and being comfortable with the person that you are, and understanding that it's okay for people to not like you. It's okay for people to, not have like this, oh my goodness, about you. It's definitely okay. It's not a big deal. People's opinions of you are going to change. And a lot of times, what I like to talk about a lot is the whole mirror effect. So when you're speaking with another person or speaking with people, oftentimes people see each other and will project themselves onto other people. So when there's something that they are uncomfortable with, they will project it onto you. It may be something that they're uncomfortable with within themselves. And that's a big thing to remember, is that not everything that everyone says to you should be taken as the Bible truth or should be taken as something that you need to absorb, right? Kind of thinking of yourself as a mirror, that yes, there can be reflections of things, but that mirror is also solid. And so anything that's going to be said about you that maybe you don't like, or people are talking to you and you don't like, what they're having to say, going into that mirror mode. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be mirroring back to them that negativity. It just means that you're going to stand your ground and maybe just walk away, or maybe just stick with it and let them, say what they're going to say and end it in a way that's positive and not take it so personally. I used to take things that people said to me so personally. I took it to heart so much. And I would spend so much time ruminating on what people had to say or what I thought people had to say. And a lot of this was based on the way that people would react, or the way that my perception of it, right? And our perceptions are all so incredibly different. Everyone's perception is different. Everyone will take things so many different ways. And the easiest thing that I found is not so much to be agreeable to everything, because you definitely have to have your boundaries and your standards. But in order to be, I guess, just more of a person that doesn't really let that stuff affect them, you just have to be able to develop a thicker skin. And that doesn't mean that you're shutting yourself off. That doesn't mean that you're, getting away from engaging with people. It just simply means that what you're doing is being your true, authentic self and making sure that you are, in fact, setting up those boundaries and that you are, in fact, just living authentically, being yourself, however that is for you. Everyone's different. You can't appease everyone, and it's kind of pointless to try to. If you're really wanting to appeal to a certain type of person or a specific person, that's great and all, but really what you should be trying to do is appealing to yourself, being the person that you know that you are, being that true, authentic version of yourself. And sometimes that takes time to find. I know for me, it definitely took a lot of time, and it really took a lot for me to get comfortable. And now I live stream a lot. That's just something that I enjoy doing. I love engaging with other types of people. I love engaging with people having differences of opinion or having the same types of opinions, and just talking about things that are promoting growth and promoting wellness and promoting, hey, it's okay if you have a certain vice. It's not a big deal. Everybody has vices. So a lot of different things for me will come up when I am, communicating, but I'm very confident and very comfortable communicating with people. And this is, again, something that I wasn't always comfortable with doing. And a lot of things came with age, but the majority of things came with inner work, came with really facing the shadows in my life that I was experiencing and dealing with self-esteem issues, right? I had a lot of self-esteem issues. I used to have an eating disorder, and those things were holding me back so much. Those things were really keeping me in a place of negativity and keeping me in a place of never feeling good enough, never feeling like I was worth it. And I had to learn through a lot of different mediums that I am worth everything that I know that I am, as long as I'm living authentically, as long as I am being myself, just my honest, true self, not necessarily my best self, but just my true, honest self, that I will go a lot further in life and I will have those opportunities come back to me and things will just happen organically. This doesn't always feel like it's possible or attainable for everyone. You may see me and you may think, oh, it's going to be easier for you because of the way that you look. Well, when I would look in the mirror, I did not see what other people saw. I saw somebody that was ugly. I saw somebody that was shameful of their body. I saw somebody that was very insecure all the time. And I never understood how to get out of that, how to be free of all of this insecurity and honestly just self negativity. And so there's a lot of different things that I've done, but the inner work aspect has probably been the most important. Doing shadow journaling and things like that, really learning more about myself, spending time alone has been super helpful as well. Being comfortable with silence, being comfortable with just being with myself and being okay with my thoughts and understanding that there's going to be times when you're going to be overrun with thoughts. Everybody is. But that's totally okay. It's okay to be overrun with thoughts. It's just how you handle it. Just like with situations. Situations that come up and can occur, things that are maybe seeming to be very challenging and difficult. These are the times where you can rise up or you can kind of back down from them. It just depends on where you are on your journey or where you are in your life. Everyone is at a different place. Thank you so much for the like. Everyone is at a different place and everyone is at a different, not only place, but just in a different sphere. We all kind of live in our own worlds. I'm not saying that we all live in our own bubbles necessarily, but we all definitely live in our own worlds. We all have our own perceptions of things. Sometimes we don't always see things with clarity. Sometimes what we aren't realizing is that there are aspects of ourselves and aspects of our character that we definitely would like to work on. Maybe we don't know how, but we would like to. So that's why I always suggest inner work. I always suggest being able to be comfortable with yourself, being able to look at yourself in the mirror and feeling good about yourself. Not necessarily about how you're looking all the time, but definitely about how you feel about yourself as a person and trying to act in the way that you would want to be treated. Thinking about how if you are talking to yourself in a negative way, would you talk to a child that way? Would you talk to a friend that way? Would you talk to a family member that way? Probably not. So all this criticism that you're giving yourself is only going to be fuel for bringing yourself down more, having more of a negative experience with yourself, not even wanting to be alone with yourself because you're so afraid of all this criticism. So what I did is I really am a big believer in affirmations. And so I started to do affirmations in the mirror, and it would be a whole slew of different ones. There's a lot of great apps out there where you can find a lot of great resources for different affirmations. And for me, what really worked was just looking in the mirror, saying these affirmations to myself, and going on about my day. Another thing that was really helpful for me was meditation. And meditation can be in all different kinds of forms. You can do moving meditation, you can do silent meditation, you can do guided meditations. And it just really helped as far as being able to have a little bit more clarity, having the ability to be a little bit more mindful of things, practicing mindfulness. That was such a big thing for me because I used to rush through everything. I just wanted to have things done because I was like overwhelmed with all these thoughts that were in my mind all the time. And I was really experiencing a pattern of intrusive thoughts. And something that I've come to learn through clients and through people in my personal life is a lot of people are experiencing these intrusive thoughts, these thoughts that feel like they aren't coming from themselves. They feel like they're coming from some other place because they're not really things that maybe you would naturally think of, or things that you wouldn't naturally think of yourself and even of others, or just of in general life. And so, people struggling with that, I just want to say that there's definitely hope, not only to get past that experience, but in order to thrive and not experience that anymore. It just takes time, and it takes a lot of patience with not only yourself, but it takes a lot of patience with your situation or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. Things will always take time. Time does not necessarily heal all wounds, but time definitely gives you that buffer. It gives you that opportunity to be able to kind of look back and see things for how they really are versus how you just think they are. And being able to change your perception is something that, again, takes time, but it's definitely worth the practice. It's definitely worth something investing in, because when you're investing in yourself, you know that you're making a great investment. This isn't like the stock market. This isn't like anything like that. It's not about good and bad investments. It's about investing in yourself, doing self-care, doing all the things that, a whole bunch of influencers and things like that will, kind of be talking about. But I'm really actually happy about this new wave of influencers talking about self-care, of talking about body positivity, of talking about, their own personal experiences and how they're able to share these experiences and help others. That's something that I don't see myself as an influencer or anything like that. I just see myself more as a woman that's on a mission to have people be well as they want to be. You don't have to be perfect. This is never a strive for perfection, because perfection is like the least thing that you can do that would be good for you. When you're always on this perfection wheel, this perfection wheel can be deadly. It can be so deadly to your career. It can be deadly to your just to your entire sphere of the way that you live. It can definitely make a lot of things more negative for you. When you think that everything has to be perfect all the time, when you think that you have to prove something to people all of the time, these are things that are going to wreck you. These are things that are going to not be helpful for you. And it's really hard to give up that perfection, especially if you're the typical like type A personality. I was actually very much a type A personality. And then I kind of switched to like a type AB, where I'm able to focus and do the work that I need to do when I need to do it. But I'm no longer spending all this time being concerned about if everything's perfect. In the past, just looking at my backdrop right now, seeing that it's a little bit slanted and not the perfect parallel that would have been something that would have freaked me out. I would have wasted 10, 15 minutes trying to get that perfect. And these days, I'm just not about that. I'm like, okay, the message is more important than the appearance. For me personally, that's my perception. Now, that's not always the perception for everybody else. Everybody else expects, certain things and a certain type of quality of things. And I'm not saying to slack on quality. I'm just saying don't beat yourself up all the time about not being perfect, because everybody's definition of perfect is so incredibly different. A lot of times we'll see things in magazines, or, well, I guess more now these days. I'm 36, so I still remember, looking through magazines and stuff like that. But these days, looking at our devices, our iPads, our phones, TV, things like that. And we're seeing this ideal, right? And it's shifting, and it's always going to be shifting. There is no one state of perfection, but everyone has their own idea of perfection in themselves. And so a lot of times we'll kind of go with the tide. We'll kind of see different waves of things, different trends of things, different sizes of bodies, different types of personalities that are appealing. And we'll see a whole bunch of them at the same time. And so that's going to, of course, influence everyone that's watching and taking in this media and taking in this content. So honestly, just being able to kind of sift through that and exposing yourself to a whole bunch of different kinds of things, and exposing yourself to a whole bunch of different kinds of people, and a lot of different kinds of people with a whole bunch of different kinds of experiences. And maybe deciding, hey, I want to coach, or hey, I want to mentor, or hey, I want to engage with people, and the types of people that you want to engage with, people that can teach you things, people that can be supportive of you and whatever it is that you're going through, or whatever challenges you are experiencing. And then sometimes there's those times where there is nothing challenging going on. You're able to just be in the moment. You're able to be mindful and be present. And you're able to actually enjoy what is happening in your life. And oftentimes we forget to think about those times or talk about those times as well. Like, there are times when things seem to be just easier, seem to be just more peaceful, seem to be just easy, right? Just a little bit easier. When you're more confident in your skin, when you're confident in the way that you're speaking, when you're confident in the way that you're living your life. Now, this doesn't mean that there's not things that you want to work on. That doesn't mean that there's not things that you want to improve. It just means that life can be easier, life can be simpler, life can also be more complicated if you want it to be that way. Everyone's different. So it really just depends on the kind of person that you are and the kind of person that you want to be. And are you right now the person that you want to be, or are you not? That's a question that a lot of my clients have asked themselves. A lot of people in my personal life have brought up to me, like, I don't really know if I'm who I want to be right now. And I'm like, sometimes that occurs to me too. I see places and areas where I, want to grow. But it's not because of this need for perfection. It's because of, I know that there's things that I do need to grow in, and there's certain aspects of my life that I do need to improve in. And so I work daily to find ways to improve myself in the ways that I see fit. But just because somebody tells you or gives you feedback, or sometimes not really so much constructive criticism, but sometimes negative criticism, and they just don't understand that it's negative criticism, sometimes you don't have to intake everybody else's opinion. What's most important when it comes to yourself and your well-being is the way that you feel about yourself, and getting to that place where you can be comfortable and feel good in your skin, feel good about the person that you are, feel good about what it is that you're doing, about why you're here. A lot of times with some of my live streams talking about the gene keys, talking about human design, getting into that was something that really helped me find my purpose, really helped me grow my purpose, really helped me develop the tools that I needed in order to be able to just understand things for myself. Now, is this something that works for everybody? No. But it's something that I like to promote because it's something that has helped me. And that's what I always do with this channel, is the things that have helped me along the way, the things that have made me a stronger person, I like to hype up, I like to talk about because they worked for me, and I always hope that they'll work for other people. And a lot of times we forget about simple things. We forget about, the things that everybody says, get enough sleep, eat right. But you don't have to be perfect about it, right? When we're talking about going on these like crazy diets, when we're talking about aiming for, size zero everything, when we're talking about aiming for, like the perfect way to think and to always have positive thoughts and you're never allowed to have anything negative. Well, what I like about the Gene Keys and Human Design, well, mainly the Gene Keys, is when Richard Rudd is talking about, the shadow, the gift, and the city. It's kind of giving you the opportunity to see the metamorphosis of how your shadow or something challenging that you're experiencing, something challenging that is happening, how that can turn into a gift because now you have the opportunity to grow and to learn from something that is occurring in your life. And that's something that has happened the most for me. In my most challenging times, I've been able to kind of see the things that have been able to help me, that have, caused growth, that have caused change. And you don't necessarily have to change everything about yourself, and things don't happen overnight all the time. Definitely didn't happen for me overnight. It definitely took many years for me to get out of that cycle of constantly beating myself up, of constantly not thinking that I was good enough for things. It took a lot of time for me. That doesn't mean it's going to take as much time for somebody else. And that's, again, also another point of this channel is so you can kind of circumvent time a little bit and be able to get some of the help and resources that you need. Or maybe just to have someone that's telling you the things that you need to hear in the moment. There's a lot of reasons for why people do things. There's a lot of reasons why people will watch different live streams or watch different videos. There's really a big pull right now for a lot of people to experience, more positive content or content that's allowing for people to be authentic. So I like to talk about, me personally, I like to talk about my vices. So I do vape, which is not considered something that's in the wellness, culture, but it's something that is human about me. It's something that I do that I used to be a smoker. I switched over to vaping and I just feel like it's been better for me as a person. I'm not saying it's healthier because that's not my place to say, but it was just something that I saw as an opportunity to slow down on the smoking of cigarettes. And even though I, was in the field of fitness, right? I still, would smoke occasionally. And then when I was stressed out or things would go on and I got out of being in the fitness realm, I was smoking a lot and I was stressed out a lot because I was so intent on beating myself up all the time. And I'm seeing this happen with a lot of people too. It's like they're always beating themselves up or they're making assumptions on what other people are thinking about them. And it's really bothering them. It's really affecting them in this way. And so now that I've had the opportunity to be in this space of not caring as much about what other people think about me and focusing more on how I feel about myself and focusing more on the things that I want to do, the goals that I have just found it to be so incredibly freeing. And I've also found it much easier to be my authentic self when I'm talking about the things that are true for me, that are real for me. This doesn't mean that, like I said, since everybody has such different perceptions, this doesn't mean that my perception or my reality is going to be your perception or your reality. And that's totally okay. It's always take it or leave it, right? You take the most that you can from whatever someone is saying or whatever information you're reading or whatever content you're allowing yourself to experience. It's taking the good parts or the parts that resonate with you and letting that go on with you. If it's helping you, that's great. If it's not helping you, then maybe start to steer away from it. And that's something that only you can make the decision about, right? The actions that we take always have consequences, and a consequence is not necessarily something bad. It just means that there's always going to be an effect. Whatever you're doing, there's always going to be an effect. It doesn't have to necessarily be negative, and oftentimes it can be very positive. It just depends on the choices that you're making, the actions that you're taking. And the most important thing I feel is that intention behind your actions, that intention behind your thoughts. If you're really focused on trying to be the best version of yourself, or at least trying to be a better version of yourself, or you're just striving to feel better about yourself. It's not even about being the best version of yourself, but just striving to be a better version of yourself for whatever reason. That's something that is really admirable and that's great. But what is your intention behind that? And really thinking about the intention behind the decisions that you're making, paying attention to the patterns that you have. That's something that is often easier to do in hindsight, but you can do it in the present moment as well. You just have to kind of think of your life and think about, okay, what patterns am I getting into? What patterns have I developed that have been helpful for me and that have been maybe not so helpful for me? Or how can I turn an unhelpful pattern into something that can be helpful? Learning from your challenges, learning from your difficulties, and applying them to your growth, or applying them to, the actions that you're going to take in the future. Learning from maybe mistakes and applying those lessons to the present and to the future. And I like to really stay in the present tense as much as possible, because oftentimes when we're thinking about the future, that can cause people to get into a state of worry, right? Like we're concerned about the future, worried about it. I like to stay in the present because when we're present focused, we're just focused on the now. And also, it's a great way when you're engaging with people. When you're staying present, it is a wonderful gift for the people that you are engaging with. It is such a major gift when you're not waiting on or thinking of the next thing that you want to say before someone else is speaking with you or before you're engaging with another person. That is such a huge thing, right? Being able to just take everything at the present moment as it is, engage with another person, and really be thoughtful and thinking about what they're saying to you. When you're taking in content, again, taking in the things that resonate with you, the things that really feel good to you, the things that really make you feel better or make you feel stronger or make you feel more powerful. Because oftentimes we are giving away our power. We're giving it away in small ways. We're not setting our boundaries enough, or we're so afraid to say no. And we can't, hi, Amar. And we can't always be in a place of saying no to everything. Oftentimes, actually, where you want to be, I'm doing good, Amar. How are you? A lot of times we want to be in a place of saying yes to opportunities and yes to things, but it's perfectly okay to say no to things that just don't feel right to you. I oftentimes think of it as we have this internal set point, right? We have these things where we feel things can be right for us and things can be wrong for us. And we can maybe feel it in our gut, or maybe we feel it here in our chest. It just depends on where you feel this intuition, where it's coming from. For everyone, it's different. But more often than not, you're not going to find it up here. You're going to find it in your heart or in your stomach. You're going to find it in places that really resonate. Oh, that's so cool that you're from India. I'm from Texas. I live in the US. So really resonating with that feeling, getting to know that intuition, getting to experience that intuition, and really following it. So if you feel like something isn't right for you, maybe just don't engage in it. Maybe that's a perfect time to practice saying no and to practice having your boundaries. And there's other times when maybe you feel like something is a yes for you, or something is something that you want to do, or something that you want to experience. You feel like it's going to help you in your life, or it's going to just make you feel better, not for the moment, but for, in general. Because we also don't want to have impulsivity. Impulsivity is really it can be a problem. I know for me, it was a major problem. I used to just impulsively buy things. I used to impulsively do a lot of different things and engage in a lot of different types of behavior. That wasn't exactly the most positive for me, and that caused damage to me. And that impulsivity is something that is very difficult, especially nowadays, to control because we have access to things a lot easier than we did in the past. But you don't have to always impulsively make that, tweet, or you don't have to always impulsively go shopping. You don't have to just do things impulsively. It's really good to spend time contemplating your actions, contemplating, what it is that your thoughts are, where your mindset is at, giving yourself that opportunity to have that contemplation. And that can be in the form of, taking some time out for yourself, being alone. That can be in the form of meditation. There's a lot of different ways where you can just spend some time contemplating things and giving yourself that time that you need in order to come to the best decision or come to the best action for yourself and for your situation. Now, being comfortable with your body, this is something that is such a big thing for so many different people. Being comfortable in your body is something that is not always easy. I know for me personally, I stepped away from doing my yoga videos for a while because I had put on a few pounds. And coming from the past experience of having an eating disorder, sometimes those thoughts will still mess with me a little bit. And I was like, oh, I'm going to look fat on camera, or oh, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. So I don't feel 100%, comfortable with the way that I look all the time. But I don't think anybody really does. There's going to be times when you're going to feel uncomfortable with the way that you look. But for me, what it is now is I am going to choose. I make the decision every moment that I can to, hey, when I have these feelings of insecurity, I'm just going to go ahead, bite the bullet, and do what I want to do anyways, and not allow my feelings of insecurity to keep me from doing the things that I enjoy and love doing, and doing the things that I know are helping others, or are things that can help others, right? Knowing and allowing ourselves, especially knowing ourselves, the biggest thing, being able to know yourself and to know what your limits are and to know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. These things take time. These things do not happen just overnight, especially if you're in a negative cycle or if you're in a negative place. It's not going to happen just overnight. It's going to take some work. It's going to take some preparation, and it's definitely going to take contemplation. So not everybody has this availability of time. Some people are, later on in their life journey. They're at an age where maybe they feel, oh, it's pointless to try to change. Oh, it's pointless to try to grow. Or there's people that are in their youth and they are making decisions and choices that they don't know are going to affect them for the rest of their lives. And I definitely lived that way. I definitely made a lot of mistakes when I was younger, but I'm so grateful that I made them when I was that age, before there was the internet, as prevalent as it is today. And I'm glad that there wasn't that ability to be as impulsive going on a live stream, right? Because in some instances, impulsively going on a live stream is not always the ideal thing for you. Sometimes you need to take time to, again, contemplate and think about what it is that you're doing. And again, not everybody feels like they have that time, but you really do have that time. You really do have that opportunity to slow it down, to gather your thoughts, to gather yourself, even in the moment. So if you're having some type of communication with another person and you're wanting to maybe get your point across, or maybe get your feelings across, or maybe just want to be able to communicate in a more clearer way. And let's say that this other person just kind of isn't getting it, and then you also are having these feelings of insecurity because you feel as though you're not communicating in the right way. Oftentimes, it just means repeating yourself, using different language, using different words, so that way the other person can understand what you're saying. Sometimes just keeping it simple. When I say keep it simple, I always think of Michael Scott and Dwight Schrute from The Office, where when Dwight Schrute's like, keep it simple, stupid, it's just like all these little things about, for some people, the way that we're communicating is causing a breakdown, or maybe we just don't know how to communicate. And so I always say, if you can just repeat things, but just repeat it differently, just package it differently each time if someone isn't understanding what you're trying to say. Think about being more concise with things. Oftentimes on live streams, I will be repeating myself. That's because I don't know when someone's going to come in or out, and I don't know when someone is going to be helped by something that I'm saying. So that's really helped me and taught me that even in my everyday life, sometimes I do just need to repeat myself. Sometimes I do need to be a little bit more assertive. And it's not always easy to be assertive, especially for people that are naturally timid or people that are naturally shy. Assertiveness is not something that is always taught in school. Assertiveness is not something that is always taught by our parents or taught by teachers or taught by people in general. But assertiveness does not mean aggressiveness. And that's probably the biggest thing and the biggest hang up that I see with people is I'm afraid to be assertive because I'm afraid it's going to come off as aggressive. And so you definitely don't want to come off as aggressive, and you don't want to be aggressive when you're being assertive. But you do want to be able to have the ability and have the confidence to be able to assert yourself, to be able to say yes and no to things when you want to, when you feel comfortable doing it. And then often sometimes it's taking that leap and being assertive even when you feel like you're uncomfortable being assertive. It's always taking that first step, taking first steps in everything. One thing will lead to another. There's always a consequence for everything that we do. So, like I said before, consequences are not necessarily negative. Consequences can oftentimes be very good things, right? When we're able to talk about different things in our life, because I'm not sure what's going on with the comments. Okay, so being assertive and just simply being able to state, okay. So, Amar, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm not really on Instagram as much these days. So, if you have felt as though I haven't spoken with you, it's just because I am not on Instagram as much. And also because there have been times when I have been made to feel uncomfortable by certain things that have been said or shared with me. So, if I'm not communicating with you, then usually what that means is that I would just no longer like to further communicate with you. And maybe that wasn't spoken clearly by me, so that's my bad. But as I'm talking about assertiveness, then let me talk about it very clearly right now. Things were shared with me that I was uncomfortable with, and I would prefer not to communicate with a person that's going to share things that make me feel uncomfortable. So, by all means, please feel free to get off of my live stream and feel free to no longer communicate with me, as I no longer wish to communicate with you. So that's an example of going ahead and setting your boundaries and being assertive. And sometimes we don't assert ourselves enough initially, and sometimes we're afraid to deal with conflict and we're not sure how to get to a resolution. And sometimes you just have to kind of lay it out there in a way that is honest, in a way that is real, and a way that is true for you. There are going to be things that will make certain people feel uncomfortable. And if you feel uncomfortable, you really should speak up. And if you have spoken up and people are still, being a certain type of way with you that makes you feel uncomfortable, you have to set your boundaries. Sometimes you have to stop communication with certain people. Sometimes you have to step away from certain situations. And sometimes you just don't want to communicate with certain people anymore for whatever reason. And so this just happened in live time. And it's just, the truth of the matter. It's not trying to shame anybody. It's not trying to make anybody feel bad. But it's just if people have done things habitually that make you uncomfortable, then you need to be able to state that. And you don't always have to explain yourself. You don't have to over-explain yourself. But you can definitely just handle the situation when you're ready to handle it. So if you are being flooded with things that are making you uncomfortable, it's definitely okay to say, hey, this is making me uncomfortable. And if you've been saying this and people are still, in a way harassing you or bothering you, You just have to really set that boundary. And, for me personally, I always feel as though I'm pretty good about setting boundaries, but I come from a place of being in a people pleasing mode. That was my mode for a very long time when I was younger. I was always about people pleasing. I was always about, oh, is this going to make this person feel better? Or is this going to make that person feel better? Or is that going to be what everybody else wants to do, right? I would always fall victim to peer pressure. And what I've learned now, or not now, but what I've learned over time is I don't need to fall victim to that. I don't need to have that type of people pleasing behavior anymore. There's just no need for it for me. If something is not right for me, I know. And so I will communicate that. Or if I take a break and I step back, then that's my way of communicating, hey, no, this is making me uncomfortable. No, thank you. But also sometimes you can't always be polite. Sometimes you have to have a firmer tone, and that's where the assertiveness comes in. Being assertive and standing up for yourself is incredibly important, but it's just being able to do it in the right way for you. For some people, though, that is screaming and yelling, but that, again, is more aggression. That is coming from a place of aggressiveness, a place of being hurt, or a place of being, feeling as though you can't simply be assertive, feeling as though you have to attack. I never feel these days like I have to attack. I always feel like I can come from a place of doing things tactfully, but doing things in a way that's honest for me, doing things in a way that is comfortable for me, and focusing on my own self first before I'm focusing on others. And that's the biggest thing too when it comes to love, learning how to love yourself. That's the only way that you can really learn how to love other people. Being able to really treat yourself the right way, right? That's the biggest way for you to be able to treat others in a good and the right way. You have to be able to do things for yourself that maybe are challenging. Maybe you're not used to this. Maybe you always have come from a place, just like I did, come from a place of people pleasing all the time, of wanting to do what everybody else wants, of wanting to engage in what everybody else wants to engage in. And I no longer feel that way. I feel as though I am perfectly capable of standing up for myself. I am perfectly capable of being able to be like, hey, this just doesn't work for me. This isn't right for me. This isn't what I want. This isn't what I need. And so being able to be assertive about that and just being very clear about my boundaries. And oftentimes what will happen is miscommunications and misunderstandings. And sometimes there are people that will be aggressive, and that even if you've said no on multiple occasions, they'll still continue to go on. And that's when you need to just learn to step back from it, step back from that type of communication, those types of personalities. And that's just what you have to do in order to protect yourself and in order to not waste time spending time in toxicity and in negativity. It's not always easy to do, but it's something that you can do. And it's something that everybody is capable of. You are capable of setting your boundaries. You are capable of saying no. You don't always have to be pleasing everybody. When you're trying to please everybody all the time, it's kind of a no-win situation. There's no way to win that game because someone's always going to be unhappy about something. There's other people that will always be happy about something else. Everybody's perception is different. The way people see things is different. And that's perfectly okay. But that doesn't mean that I have to accept certain behavior that maybe I don't want to accept or I don't want to experience any longer. It's perfectly okay to say no. It's always okay to set your boundaries. But being comfortable in your own skin, right? That's part of it too, is knowing how and who and when and what and where. You never know what you're exposing yourself to. You never know how, certain interactions are going to affect you. You never know how certain things are going to happen. We are not fortune tellers. We cannot see the future. As much as we would like to, and as awesome as that would be, we don't all have that capability. I do believe that some people do have that foresight, that do have that gift. But it's not something that everybody has, right? A lot of it is based on assumptions. But being comfortable in your own skin, that comes with the power of being able to be honest about where you're at with your boundaries, being honest about where you're at with what you're okay with sharing, what you're not okay with sharing. And it's different for everybody. It's something that can be tailored specifically to you if you were to be coaching with me. But if not, then that's why I kind of tend to generalize certain things, because I never know what's going to speak to certain people. But I'm not really trying to go after, having people like me all the time and having people, be like, oh, that's so awesome, or oh, that's so great all the time. I've kind of gotten over that. So when I do my live streams on Gene Keys and reading that material and stuff that maybe some people find boring, it's things that have helped me. And if there's things that have helped me, I know that there's other people in my life that have been mentors or that have been people that have just inspired me. And when they shared what helped them, it really helped me. So I know that when I share certain things about myself and certain experiences about myself or certain tools that I have in my toolbox that have helped me, I know that there's always that potential of helping somebody else. And that's where I love to come from. I love to come from a place of helping. Now, that doesn't mean people pleasing. That means that sometimes I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to go in a direction that feels right for me. And that's what matters, is that I'm going in a direction that's correct for me. That may not be correct for everybody else, and that's totally okay. There's no problem with that. So knowing then when to stop participating in certain types of content, or knowing when, hey, this person is no longer in alignment with, what I want to do, what I want to be. And I've done that with a lot of things, with a lot of content that I enjoy and that I love, which the main one, as I've talked about so many times before, is comedy. With certain comedy podcasts that I, really felt like was in alignment with me, at certain point in time, some of it started to fall off. And I was like, some of this really isn't in alignment with me anymore. So I would go, and if I was a patron, like on Patreon, I would just cancel my subscription. I finally learned how to do that because I didn't know how to do it because Patreon app makes it kind of complicated. But just with things like that, right? The content that I'm ingesting, the content that I'm, again, choosing to and making the choice of participating in ingesting, that's a choice, that's an action, and that's something that is within your locus of control. If something isn't resonating with you anymore, then it's not resonating with you anymore. And that's totally okay. There's no problem with that. It's just being honest with it for yourself. And content is one of those things that we are very easily able to control. If things are something that work for you, that's great. That doesn't mean it's going to work for you forever. It doesn't mean that, you're going to be in alignment with certain people, your whole life. As we change, as we grow, as we evolve, it's going to change for you. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that another person was doing something wrong necessarily. But if someone is doing something that is wrong, or someone has done something that's made you uncomfortable, it's perfectly okay to speak up and to let that person know. And it's perfectly okay to handle it in the way that you most see fit, in the way that works for you. And being comfortable in your skin is also being able to kind of traverse all of this stuff and go through all of this stuff and experience all this stuff, and being able to say, hey, I feel good about putting my head down on the pillow when I'm going to sleep because I handled the situation in the way that I wanted to. I handled the situation in a way that worked best for me. And it's not about sacrificing another person's feelings or sacrificing another person's, whatever. It's just about doing the right thing for you, not only in the moment, but in all the moments, right? And that's not always easy to do, but it is definitely something to strive for. It's definitely something to strive for, to be able to be honest and say no to certain things or to say yes to certain things. And when you feel uncomfortable about how you are in your body or how you are on the inside, right? When you feel as though you're just not comfortable with yourself. It's very difficult to set those boundaries. It's very difficult to know yourself when you don't really like yourself, or when you don't really feel comfortable or confident in yourself. And when you finally learn how to be confident with yourself, and you finally learn to be, comfortable in your own skin, then that takes you just so much further. But it's being in that place of uncomfortability. It's being in that place of, okay, how do I get from A to B, not A to Z? Because everything, it takes steps. It takes time. It takes, learning over the course of time. And for me, I think also too, I am like a lot of people where I need lessons over and over again sometimes to learn things. I have ADHD, so sometimes I have to, repeat things over and over, even when I'm just reading things in order to absorb it. I have to kind of like read things, multiple times. Well, same thing with experiences. I sometimes have to experience things multiple times, as do a lot of people, in order for me to finally get it. And that's okay too. It just depends on your learning style and getting to know yourself better and getting to know, okay, how do I process things better? How do I experience things in a way that's true for me, in a way that's honest for me, in a way that's authentic for me? And authenticity is not easy to fake in any capacity. Authenticity comes from within, it's intrinsic. So, being able to be comfortable with yourself, that means being honest about being able to be comfortable with yourself, being honest about your little setbacks and things. Like for me, for example, feeling uncomfortable doing yoga because I felt as though, oh, I'm not going to look as good because I put on a few pounds or whatever it is. I know that that's not me really talking. That's just my own self-doubts, my self-limiting beliefs. That's what that is. That's that perfectionism, that stuff that from my past that will come up for me sometimes. And it comes up for everybody that's ever had a type A personality or sort of a type A personality. It's something that you're going to be working on. Maybe not every day, but you are going to definitely be working on it. And it's definitely going to take time, and it's definitely going to take patience on yourself. But being able to show yourself that patience that you would show a friend or a child or a loved one, being able to show yourself the kind of patience that you would give to somebody else is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Being gentle with yourself, not rushing into things. Again, that impulsivity aspect that I talked about earlier. Feeling free of having to be impulsive with things. Feeling free of having to be just, constantly going for the next thing, going for the next thing, going for the next thing, and not really thinking about what is going to happen or what the consequences are going to be of whatever it is that we're doing. That's something that is so incredibly important to think about, is when you're making an impulsive choice and you're not taking the time to kind of contemplate things, you're not always going to get the best result. Rushing something is not always going to be the best way to get something done. And we've seen this with a lot of different things, not only just on a personal level, but on a global level. When things tend to be rushed, they don't always tend to be done the right way. There is efficiency, of course, but there's also sometimes there's inefficiency, and there's things that can be done better and can be run better and can be experienced better. And so often the main thing is ourselves, is who we are, is the way that we're perceiving things. And again, we have to remember the way we perceive things is actually a choice. It's a decision. It's not necessarily just out of nowhere. If we take responsibility for the decisions and choices that we make, we're going to be much further off and better off than we are if we live in a victim mentality. And I spent so many years in a victim mentality. I spent a lot of time in a victim mentality, and doing a lot of inner work and really studying the gene keys and studying human design a little bit. That has really helped me personally. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be something that resonates with you as much, but it resonates with me and it has helped me immensely. Inner work, I think, will resonate with everyone. I think it's hard to say that doing inner work is not something that is not going to be helpful. Doing inner work is something that is going to be helpful for everybody. It's just when they decide to do it, when they want to do it. Sometimes you need to do things that maybe you don't want to do, or maybe that you feel uncomfortable doing. Sometimes you just have to be able to do those things, and deciding to, making the choice to, and then following through with it, you feel so much better afterwards. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to put yourself in a position where you're going to do something to, just try to appease everyone around you, or try to do things just to get people to like you. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is the decisions that you're making in your everyday life, and how all those little decisions end up adding up to something bigger, and how that's going to kind of be representative of where you're going to be in the future. But again, I like to stay in the present. I like to be present focused. I feel as though that's just more helpful for me and the way that I process things. And I hope that for you, being able to be more present and being more mindful and being more accepting of your body physically, but also yourself as a person on the inside, and listening to your intuition, which again, your heart, your stomach, those are the two main places. Not so much with our mind, because our perception is not always accurate. And being able to be honest about that, and being able to be upfront about that, and being like, okay, well, everyone has different perceptions, and that's okay. It just doesn't mean you have to be accepting of everyone's perceptions. You do have to be able to say no to certain things, but you also have to be able to say yes to certain things. So, in the end, the grand scheme of things is do things that are true for you. Do things that are right for you. Try not to be impulsive. Try to, stick with things that really resonate with you, that are in alignment with you and your life and your goals. And don't allow people to, put their, for lack of a better word, put their bullshit on you, and allow yourself to make the best decision that you can for yourself in this moment and today. So hopefully this stream of consciousness affected someone, helped someone. I appreciate all the likes. Thank you so much for participating in my live stream. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and or join as it is popping off on the other tiers with content. And I will see you on the next live stream or video. Be well, stay wild as well.